All right. Well, thanks for coming, everyone. Today, we at the Gold Mine Project are so very excited to have three professionals joining us today from the health and technologies industries. For those of you who have not attended a Gold Mine Project event before, we warmly welcome you. We're so excited to have you. And for those of you returning, we hope that you continue to find value in these webinars that we host, bringing on all kinds of different folks with different backgrounds. So if you haven't heard me speak before, my name is Catherine. I'm the president of the Gold Mine Project. I also am the HR generalist at Olympia Financial. So, this for me is my passion project. I'm really happy to be here today. And I'm quite passionate about what we do. Robbie Priest, he is going to be co-hosting with me today. So he is going to be facilitating the chat for us at the end of our panel here. So if you have any questions throughout, we definitely recommend put those in the chat box. You can put those in there throughout, and then Robbie will go through those at the end. And at the end as well, if you're comfortable, you're more than welcome to unmute yourself and ask any questions at the end. So yes, we will be, as you see, recording this session. It's going to be uploaded onto YouTube for your viewing. And if you have to pop out early, check that out on YouTube afterwards. But yeah, we at the Gold Mine Project, what we do is we focus on highlighting local tools and resources for whether it's your job search. Mental health is, as we all know, very much a part of that process, and keeping up that willpower and that positivity. And that's what we like to do in these sessions. Continue to motivate everybody and to provide those local resources that are here in Calgary, as well as show any kinds of job opportunities that may exist and other industry information. So that's what we're doing here today. Many folks are transitioning their skills from whether it be oil and gas, what have you, into other areas. And as we know, health and technology is growing day by day, and so that's what we're going to be doing here. So in the spirit of reconciliation, as we know, tomorrow is actually going to be a holiday. So it'll be the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And we would like to acknowledge that we live, work, and play on traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Kakani, and Piikani, and the Tsuut'ina Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda Nations, the Métis in Region 3, and for all of us who make their homes in Calgary. We're living in the Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta. And as well, we would like to just quickly go through some introductions of who our wonderful panel is here today. So Chantel, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what brings you here today.
Yes, well, thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone for joining us today. Catherine and I were connected when I was working in the health and fitness industry. So that is, if anybody does know me personally, that is my biggest passion in life. Outside of my career in human resources, I really like to advocate for health, fitness, and put more of a focus on mental health as well. There's always been a need for that, and even more so now as we, kind of navigate maybe a post-pandemic world, however that is defined nowadays, depending on who you ask. So I began human resources just following my educational background out of Mount Royal University. Had the fortunate opportunity to lead the human resources department for International Fitness Holdings, which is the previous World Health Spa Lady team, now Gym Movement, Her Gym Movement. Had great experience there, and currently right now I'm employed with Shane Holmes. So managing the resources department here. So
yeah, wealth of knowledge.
Thank you very much.
And after the presentation here today, what is the best way to reach out to you? Do you prefer to be reached out to via LinkedIn, email? What for you kind of works best?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to encourage everyone to reach out and connect via LinkedIn. At any point in time, if there's any questions or any kind of conversations we can keep the ball rolling on, I'm always willing to kind of engage in that aspect and highly encourage it. So
for sure. Awesome. All right. And Grace.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Grace Clark, and I am one of the co-founders of a business called Nutrimeals. We specialize in creating healthy, ready-to-eat meals for our customers. And so Catherine and I, we actually go way back to our university days. And so that's how we were connected. And recently I've been brought on to be part of the Goldmine project as well. So I'm really happy to be a part of it. It's a fabulous team. And I think that the kind of mantra that I find myself kind of living by is just to, be open to new opportunities, be kind along the journey and along the way, and also to take advantage and conquer those results so that you can find that courage to experience different opportunities in your life to its full potential. So that's where I'm at with everything. So yeah.
Well, great. Well, no, thanks for joining us today, Grace. And thank you also for volunteering your time and being a part of our board. If anyone here today is interested in volunteering and giving back to the community, every small bit helps, right? So if you are interested at all, feel free to check out our website. And there is a volunteer page there that you can take a look at and send us an email if you're interested in donating some of your time. But I digress. Dennis, last but not least, tell us about yourself.
Thank you. Firstly, everybody, thank you for coming today. It's a pleasure to be here. I am the founder and CEO of a company called robots.education. I've been working with children trying to improve their technical skills in robotics and coding for about 8 years, working with adults as well recently, trying to help people upskill and prepare for what is going to be a very dramatic change in the workplace towards technology, robotics and AI kind of fuse with everything. I've traveled around the world speaking at education conferences. I've spoken with more than 20,000 educators. I've inspired more than 18,000 kids to want to learn robotics. Curiously, my background is not in robotics. My background is in communications. And I got involved with this because the person that was actually the founder of this company was working for me as a programmer and building robotics in his spare time. And then he built what is hands down the best robotics platform in the world for educating kids. So I started kind of helping him with that because I'd run companies before, started to realize he was sitting on something really special and started to understand the impact robotics and AI would have. So I started getting involved with his company, really, just to try to help people get the word out there to educators, to make sure the educators understood what they needed to do for their kids, for their students, to get them prepared. And it's kind of evolved. I'm now the CEO of Easy Robot for about the last 2 years. And I get asked by engineering companies, the Canadian Heavy Oil Association asked me to speak to their membership. Universities from around the world will ask me to talk about robotics and AI and how it's impacting the workforce. So it's funny, I'm not passionate about robotics, about building robotics, but I'm incredibly passionate about robotics and AI and the impact it's going to have and trying to make sure everybody's prepared for that.
Yeah, massive impact. And, as we can even see that in Calgary already, technology is just blasting off. So no, I'm very, very excited to have all your different opinions here today when it comes to these unique industries and how that affects candidates and how that affects folks who are looking to, gain entrance into those industries. So one of my first questions for you today is, when it comes to, I will kind of go off script a little bit here, but when it comes to each of your industries, maybe we'll touch on the health industry first. What are you seeing when it comes to that industry? It's a very general question, but what are you seeing and when it comes to growth potential, if any? What does that kind of look like right now?
I think right now, because there's just been such a heavy focus on mental health and really supporting those who can, better themselves from that aspect, we're seeing a lot of a lot of job seekers, really wanting to get their kind of foot in the door. Not so much because they necessarily want a job, but because they want to actually give back out of a place that stems out of deep passion and care. For anyone in the health industry, the reason I was involved in that industry for so long is because there was such a level of commitment for everyone involved at any point in the organization to kind of give back and allow those to kind of improve themselves and kind of continuously improve themselves. So to answer your question, it's a very big desire from a passion perspective, not so much because I need a paycheck. And I think that really resonates volume when you're kind of speaking about engagement and philanthropy there as well. So a big shift in a lot of job seekers wanting to make career moves as well, and knowing that there is the need there. It sparked a lot of interest, which is really incredible to see as well, right? So
yeah, I definitely think that a lot of employees have, in a way, because of the pandemic, gotten off that treadmill of just coming into the office just for a job. I think a lot of people have seen what work-life balance looks like, and to do something that they're passionate about, right? So it's exciting to see that industry starting to grow. And from the technology side of things, Dennis, maybe tell us what that kind of looks like.
Well, for our business in particular, the last 18 months has been exceedingly challenging. We've got a physical hands-on robotics product that is great for teaching kids, super inspiring, but it's physical and hands-on. And as of March of 2020, all school budgets kind of froze and pushed towards personal protective equipment, virtual learning, Chromebooks, iPads. So our particular company has just ridden through a very difficult spell, but we're good now and things are looking very promising. One of the interesting things that juxtaposes that is that COVID has accelerated businesses' interest in robotics and AI because it streamlines the workforce. And when businesses are closed, here's a real low-hanging piece of fruit, but in a restaurant, if you have a robotic chef, then you don't have to worry about whether that robotic chef is sick with COVID, or you can stay open, right? So there's a lot of things pivoting, and that's just one example, but those types of changes are happening across all industries. And what I know is that robotics and AI will have an unprecedentedly large impact on the workforce. And people that are getting this education are going to be advantaged across all industries. And this is a real important distinction. A lot of times, if you're hearing about robotics and AI on the news, you might think, oh, we'll need more programmers in the future. But it's not like that. It is for sure. Anybody who's a programmer is going to be hugely in good shape in the future for at least a period of time. But robotics and AI will very quickly become a layer across all industries. And people that have literacy in those technologies will be advantaged. If you're going to hire a retail manager in the store and they've got self-checkouts, customer service robots in the warehouse, robot stocking shelves, if they've got that type of technology, are you hiring a manager that has those skills or doesn't have those skills? Right? So we believe that the robotics education industry and the AI education industry will explode, at least from a literacy perspective. And certainly it's already growing, incredibly fast from an actual, proficiency and mastery level.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it's not just the programmers. I feel like a lot of people get maybe scared of the idea of AI and how it'll be taking away jobs, but there's so many other jobs created as a result, whether it's quality assurance, data, business intelligence side of things. There's a lot of other opportunities that are completely transitional within that, right? So yeah, when it comes to this field and these fields, what do you find that are some really great qualities, or we'll even back it up. What does that process usually look like when it comes to each of you, and what that hiring process looks like? What does that kind of break down to? What can people anticipate?
Do you
Yeah,
want me-
I guess that, oh, sorry, Dennis, go
No,
ahead.
go ahead. I just wasn't sure who she was throwing through there. So go ahead, Grace.
Yeah, no worries. I guess I can speak to the kind of hiring process that we have at Nutrimeals. So we are quite a small business. We started in our last year of university in 2018. So we're small, but we're nimble. And basically what the hiring process looks like is, you put that job posting out there. I love to utilize the resource for Indeed. I find that it keeps everything organized. It's really nice. And you just kind of go through the process of, filtering through, are they going to be a good fit? Do you think that they'll be a good team player? What does their experience look like? And then also kind of what their education looks like as well, because those two obviously will go hand in hand.
Mhm.
And it's basically just the traditional, phone call to see if they can even, pick up the phone, which I hope everyone is doing. Pick up the phone, have that initial conversation, and then take those next steps to see, let's meet you in person. Let's maybe even have a trial shift. And I'm speaking more towards specifically to our business with having to prepare meals. It's going, okay, do you have the culinary skills to be able to produce a certain amount of meals, and do you have the interpersonal skills to also get along with team members and be that team player that will help move this company along. So that's kind of what our hiring process looks like. We've been extremely fortunate with having a fabulous team so far. So knock on wood, they like it too. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Grace. Does anybody else want to add more to that?
Dennis, if you want to go ahead, I know you were going to add to that. Yeah, go.
Okay.
So during my time with IFH, our process was a little bit more robust, only because we had about 23 fitness facilities across the province, and just one individual kind of, handling recruitment. So at the time, we actually didn't really utilize a lot of software. So I think, our process kind of commenced with making sure that we had an ATS, applicant tracking system, put in place so that anywhere we do post for job postings, they are redirected to one central platform, just so that we could more, manage the influx and, the volume of candidates applying. Depending on, the software is available on the market, we had one that would, usually be able to filter through the resumes to kind of match and mirror what we were looking for from a skill set requirement, which was different for every job. From that process on, there would be a respective hiring manager for every club that would be involved. And then what that process actually looked like was conducting kind of a pre-screen questionnaire, just to kind of better understand why they applied, what attracted them to the position, kind of tuning in for that organizational fit right off the get-go there, and then bringing them in for an interview, depending on the nature of the role, either, have them either train yourself, or, be able to kind of show their customer service skills, depending on what they had applied for at the time.
Yeah.
This would be kind of handled with the hiring manager, or other team members, as they kind of deem that appropriate. But from then and there, the biggest thing we really kind of focused on was, having those individuals who wanted to join our team, where we knew that we can give them the training and the development that was required, not only for their success, but for longevity of making sure the workforce would kind of carry on the legacy that was kind of established there at the time. Knock on wood, really seamless, smooth, everyone just overall team player. So that was our process, kind of high level.
And our process is almost backwards from what probably any other company would suggest as being a smart.
And that's great. Yeah.
We're a very small company, and we are a small company playing in very big waters. And things change in this industry so quickly that we know there's a whole lot of pathways we could go down. We've got our core path, but we know there's a whole lot of offshoots that we could address with the right people when the timing is right. So my hiring process at this time, we put out the job posting. We use Indeed as well. And then I'll wait till I've got 25 or 30 applicants, and then I'll pick the top 5 to 7 maybe, and I will interview them myself. And I interview them myself because I've got within our company a unique understanding of what all the other potential future opportunities are. And so when I'm hiring, I'm hiring 50% for the specific job and 50% where that person might fit in 6 months or a year's time. And it might well be that I'm hiring them and they're going to stay exactly in what they've been hired for. But I like to get a sense of who's out there and what the possibilities are, because there's things that change for us and opportunities that arise on a daily basis. Yeah, I shouldn't say I just hired, but I'm this close. We're going through the negotiation process to hiring somebody who has worked in the Middle East for a number of years, because that's an incredible opportunity and the exact right person came along. And so I'm like, okay, that's somebody I need to add to my team. Yeah. And then once I get through with people, if I go, okay, I've got somebody I'm happy with, then I will pass them on to whoever their supervisor will be. And I want to make sure the supervisor also feels that's a good fit in terms of skills and personality. But if I don't get somebody out of those 5 or 10 I feel comfortable with, I'll wait till I get another 25 or 30 people and interview 5 or 10 more. So it's an arduous task at this point for me. But it means that I have a really good, robust understanding of the person we're bringing into our team. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's definitely more than one way to do things. And I think that's the pieces as a candidate. Yeah, there's definitely every company does things a little bit differently, and there's no right or wrong way, which is why it's really helpful to chat and see how different perspectives work and what's proven and what's maybe that could be worked upon, right? So I think what it sounds like is those main job boards that have pretty well been consistent over the last 5-10 years has been Indeed, and even creeping up on the professional side of work background is LinkedIn. I know Monster has kind of died off. I know people used to post on Kijiji, Craigslist, kind of that's all died off, and it's more so those job boards. Does that kind of sound relevant in what you guys are seeing right now too, or using? Yeah.
I'd say
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would advise against going on Craigslist and Kijiji, to be honest.
Yeah, and where Chantel is saying that is there's lots of people who are out there who do unfortunately try to take advantage of others. And so there is a lot of scams out there. So, no company will ever ask for your SIN card until your offer's been accepted. Make sure you've either met them virtually, you've gone and done your research, their company page will accept correct and real. Do your research is essentially what we're saying here. And I see that we've got a couple hands up from some of our attendees. And what I'll just ask here for you now is if you feel free to add them in the chat box there. And if not, we'll address those questions at the end super quick. So I do see you. We will answer those coming up here very shortly. And so kind of going throughout that interview process, coming back to what everybody's here today is how do you be successful? I think we're, as many people are, it's you throw your resume out into the abyss and what happens, right? That resume typically, as we know, as recruiters or as people who have hiring managers or in HR in some cases here on the panel, you don't spend very long on a resume. So what would you guys say? What speaks to you about a resume or cover letter? What are some of your suggestions to potential applicants?
Go ahead, Grace.
Sure. I think that one of the things that I really like the most is just having that the applicant has thoroughly thought through what it would look like for them to be with your organization. And it's not, I know that when you're out there looking for jobs, it's like, okay, I just want to get as many resumes out there. It's definitely the quantity that you're trying to get out. But I can definitely notice when I see a quality resume that someone has actually taken the time to not just take out a previous company's name and insert Nutrimeals. It's definitely, I would say that the pieces that stand out the most is even just saying the things that you can bring to the company, complement the team that is already existing and showcase how your skills can help elevate and further along the business activities. I would also say that one of the questions in this panel was if you read cover letters. I don't know if I'm giving too much away, but
give it away.
I think it's super important. Like if someone is putting out the time and the content for you to be reading, I think it's a little bit disrespectful as a hiring manager to not read that information and absorb as much as you can. I think that if you're wanting to be successful in the job application process, I would just say to make the application as unique and catered towards what you believe the company is wanting to accomplish as you can. I know that's kind of a loaded question because you won't know, but do your research. If you want to work there, you should at least be looking at their website. You should at least be looking at their team that's already existing and see where you would fit best.
Yeah.
Further to that as well, all great pointers, Grace. Really having an understanding of how the role itself as well is going to contribute to the organization. That's something that really stands out to me because that shows that, you know, you want to kind of contribute to not only the role itself, but you understand the team dynamic and how everyone's contributions are going to kind of work towards that end goal there, right? So just another aspect as well. You can definitely pick apart cover letters that are cookie cutters, where you just kind of change those specific fields, but really tailoring, you know, the reasons why and showcasing that through a narrative. That's when I'm sitting there reading them like, wow, I got to give this person a call. I really want to just like learn more as well. It's not a fast process, right? When you're taking the time to make it as organic as you possibly can. So it's an industry debate. It's do cover letters, you know, add, take away, and I think it's really you know, in the job seekers, the way in which they're kind of executing, right? So just a few things to keep in mind.
Yeah. No, cover letters are definitely debated. Some people, some companies ask for them, some people don't. So when you're looking at that company and doing your research, if you see, I would say a general thing would be if it is a small company, typically that hiring manager, they're not hiring for a ton of positions. So they're more likely to take the time when they are doing that initial pre-screening. So yes, I would say more often than not, I see even when you go through on Indeed and you have your application and they ask for those additional questions, often there's that chunk where you can give a written response, and more often than not, I'll see a different company's name in there. And that, to me, if I'm hiring for a data analyst or a role that requires that high attention to detail, it's for me a red flag, and it just shows me that you're not necessarily taking your time. So yeah, great points, ladies. Anything you want to add there, Dennis?
Yeah, so whether, you know, what I'm looking for in a resume or a cover letter partly depends on the position I'm hiring for. If I'm hiring an engineer, specific qualifications and skills are much higher value or importance to me. Right, they have to reach a certain threshold of expertise. If I'm hiring for a business development person, what's on the resume is still important. But with a business development person, I'm looking for as much personality as I am. And what I will sometimes do is I'll put in my job listings, you know, please submit resume and cover letter. And the people that don't put in a cover letter, I'm like, you're just applying, you don't care. Right. So I'll use that to weed people out. The other aspect, though, is a cover letter is really great if it's a well-written cover letter and it pertains to the company. If you're sending me a stock cover letter, that's you're probably harming yourself. And because, you know, if I put good details in my job listings, I put time into that to say, here's what I'm looking for. If you're going to look for a job with my company, you better parrot that back to me and tell me how you solve my problems.
Mhm.
And my favorite ever example of don't do this on your cover letter was when I had a television production company, and I was looking for a senior video editor, and the person had they gave me a cover letter, but on their cover letter they had I would like to apply for the position of a big black bar editor. And so I held the piece of paper up to the light, and I could see that it said junior. And they crossed the word junior out to apply for the position of senior editor and didn't bother to even reprint. I'm just like, well, you have to bring excellence, right? And I'll actually go one step further, which my children tell me makes me a jerk. But the cover letter for me is important because we communicate with educators all the time. They're our primary client. So somebody's written skills are very important, how they present themselves, how they communicate. And if I get into a second or third interview situation with a client or with potential applicants, I'll actually make them write an email in the meeting.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not interested in what your friends can write in a cover letter. I'm interested in what you can write. So I'll sit there and I'll make them do it. And if their grammar is really bad, that's a strike. And if I've got an engineer and they're working on technical things and they're a great engineer, grammar doesn't matter that much. If I'm talking with somebody who's front facing or outward facing, that person needs to be an excellent communicator. So I will use the cover letter as a first point of judgment on whether they're an excellent communicator.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Very, very great point. And those written skills are, yes, depending on the role, very important. I will kind of go off on my own little tangent, which is just when it comes to even corresponding in regards to scheduling an interview, I'll so often have people write back and go one word, yes. Don't be one of those people. Present your best self. Follow that typical email literacy that you would see. Take that time to thank them for scheduling that interview for you. It can be a thankless job being in HR. So if you take that time to make that connection with whether it's in a recruiter, HR manager, even just a team lead who's helping schedule, take that time. But so we've chatted a little bit about cover letters. For you, what do you think are some of the do's and don'ts on resumes that you've seen for your industries?
I would say do highlight, certifications that would only strengthen like a specific skill set. So that's going to be a few of the first things we're going to either look at and say yes or no. Make sure, really make sure that if you are putting a resume forward and you do have a professional LinkedIn account, that information on your resume does match the information on your LinkedIn as well. So I'm a little apprehensive. I love consistency. And so if, for example, I do see employment on a LinkedIn profile that's not listed on a resume, I'm going to think, why? What is the case there? Why is that missed? And I will probe at that during the pre-screen question and see kind of what is happening. And do also outline in previous work experience as well, not only the years you were there, but also the months as well. That really helps for a few reasons, but I'd love to pass it on to Grace and Dennis as well to kind of add to all of that.
Dennis, you can go first this time.
I was going to prepare my answer.
Right?
There's the only thing I would say is your resume doesn't need to be bulked out with a whole bunch of irrelevant stuff. Again, I'm looking for somebody that wants to work for my company. And so if I've put, here's the skills that I'm looking for, I don't expect them to only have those exact things. And in fact, I don't want that. But I do want them to try to take the time to send me something that is applicable. And I know that people start in junior positions all the time. And sometimes I'm hiring for a senior position and I'll read through a resume and I'll be like, oh, that's not senior position, but this person would actually be great over, in this capacity. So I don't mind getting a robust resume. Like I said, my practices are probably not best practices, but I try to distill as much as I can. I will totally echo Chantel's comment about making sure that you've got uniformity across social media and stuff. That's huge. If I've got somebody and their resume looks good, I am stalking. I'm cyber stalking. I'm going into the LinkedIn and I want to know that their LinkedIn looks great. It's complete. It's robust. And then I'm looking at their Facebook. Are they posting pictures of them drunken all the time? Right. I work with children. That's now, again, it depends on the position I'm hiring for, but you want to get it as, at least for me, before a person walks in, I want to try to get as robust of a view of that person as I can. And I'm looking for inconsistencies between platforms, between resume and cover letter, or places that I can, that I can probe more in an interview. If somebody says that they were, if somebody who works for Microsoft is not necessarily more valuable to me than somebody that worked for a small company. It's what jobs did you perform? And if you say, you worked on this project in your cover letter or your resume, I'm digging in on that. I want to know what tasks you performed. And I think a lot of times people present like, oh, I led this project, and I'm like, okay, what did that project entail? What challenges did you hit? What specifically did you learn in that project? And you can tell by the answers if they were actively involved in that project or if they just had it on their resume.
Yeah, no, I think those are some great tips and tricks for resumes. How many pages do you want to see? Do you want to see like 6 pages, 1 page? What do you want to see?
I want it one or two max. I think to kind of support what Chantel and Dennis were talking about is with the consistency as well. When you're posting and applying for jobs on Indeed specifically, if I'm seeing that you have on your resume, you're saying I have 5 years of X experience, but you filled in a question on this Indeed platform that I filter through the answers for, and your experience says 10, then we have a bit of an issue there. But I also think that if you're going to have a very high level resume, you should probably follow up with a very robust and thought through cover letter to support that information and to support the maybe the projects that you've worked on, like Dennis was mentioning, or any kind of extra credentials that you have from secondary education, anything like that that's going to supplement and is going to add value to that resume and to that cover letter. So filters, it's hard because you don't know how that specific hiring manager is going to respond or react. Everyone likes certain things and different things, so it's almost like taking a shot in the dark. But if you have that supporting documentation and that supporting cover letter information, I think that a resume can be as concise and short as possible, and don't take up half a page with your headshot, please.
LinkedIn is a great tool. Like LinkedIn, as long as you want, and then from a resume, they can see that you've tailored it. A lot of candidates, I think, get scared that it'll look like you've got these gaps, and it can be quite easy to, when you reflect on LinkedIn and go through the full work experience, that can be a tool as well. So even just putting that quick link for your resume to your LinkedIn page is a fabulous tool to utilize if you are one of those people who have worked at a few different companies over the course of, could be 30, 40 years, right? So
yeah, absolutely. And I would like to my last point on this is have your personality stand out. Like you are being hired, you're a human, you are a person adding value to this corporation, whichever one it might be. And we want to see your personality. If if you can show that personality in your cover letter, great, let's see it. If you can show it in that resume, awesome. Like do the best that you can to keep that professional level, but also showcase that personality, because that's what is going to set you apart from a lot of the other candidates.
Absolutely.
I just want to say, if someone's going to send me a 3-page resume, that better be some kind of resume.
Yeah.
Waste my time with irrelevant junk, right? And I mean, in some cases, when people are starting out, their resume is mostly full of irrelevant stuff. That's the flat reality, truly, and that's okay. But if you always put your best foot forward, right? If you've got 3 pages of unbelievable, you won't believe the stuff that I've done.
Yeah,
maybe. But I think your comment, Catherine, about put a link to the LinkedIn page. More job experience listed on the LinkedIn page. I'm not I'm not afraid of gaps in resumes in terms of work years. I'm going to ask about them. But if I've got somebody who's qualified and looks good, then I'm going to pick up the phone or schedule an interview or send them an email and say, hey, what about this? And so, but linking to the LinkedIn is great, because then you're not wasting people's time. And I would rather get a 1-page resume and a really good cover letter than a 2-page resume and a really crappy cover letter.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, we'll move along to the interview process. So this is where you're at your best. So maybe for our audience here today, what for you, I mean, we're in the world of also Zoom now as we all sit here today. So whether it's a virtual interview or an in-person interview, at this point, the hiring manager, business owner, recruiter has seen your resume. They've decided that your skills are a fit. What would you recommend to candidates, generally speaking, in the interview process? What are do's or what are don'ts?
I guess. Oh, go ahead. Do I go first, Chantal?
Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say that the number one most important thing is know who you're talking to. Do your own cyber stalking. Really, truly, right? And know the company you're talking to. My favorite question, and I try to word it a little bit nicer than this, but tell me about myself. Tell me about my company. And a lot of times people come into the interview and they don't know. And I'm like, man, you're not looking for a career. And our industry, our jobs they require much too much training for us to hire transient employees. Right? We invest a significant amount of money making sure that people know how to present our products, understand our products, know how to teach with our products, whatever it's going to be. We don't want to invest in somebody that doesn't see us as a long-term fit. And so a real big thing that I'm doing in that interview is I'm probing to see what are their skills and backgrounds, what are their personalities, but also, are we a long-term fit for this person? I think for us, that's critically important.
Yeah.
I would say, it's easier said than done, but be yourself at this point in time. You've obviously on paper brought everything that, we're looking for in that sense. But, pay attention to what is being asked. I would really recommend that responses are clear and they're concise. So what we're looking for most often, if not at all times, is a STAR response. So in behavioral questions, recruiters or HR professionals are asking, they're usually asking, what was an example of this? What was the outcome? So what we're looking is for a STAR response. What was the situation? What was the task at hand to follow? What were the actions that you yourself took the initiative to complete? And what was the response? So that just showcases your communication will be clear, concise. If we were to move forward, direction, there'd be no lost kind of communication in that. This person is fully competent, not only with the behavioral skills, they've proven that, but they also have the ability to digest information and relay that back. There's often so much happening. I see emails that could have been cut down half the amount of time, but we're really looking for those people that can kind of provide us with the responses and the answers we're looking for, and just be yourself and don't be shy to showcase, laugh. It's really difficult, kind of interviewing individuals that have a big wall up as well, because it kind of throws the professionals off or the hiring manager off at the time, and then they're going to walk away saying, and I see this all the time, I just don't know how they would fit with the team if that's the approach that you're taking in there. So always take a deep breath, never doubt yourself walking in there, and just know that you're there for a reason. So don't hesitate to showcase yourself and be at ease during interviews as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. I would say that with some of my experience with hiring, it's important to talk up your skills, but don't take anyone else down so that you can make yourself look better. I think that just showcases some poor personal skills. And I would definitely also say to kind of view the interview as a conversation. Yes, you're going to be being asked questions, and you should be asking questions as well. I think it's super common to see people who are being interviewed just be asked questions consistently for half an hour. And even as the interviewer, it kind of gets tiring. To just like break up the conversation. You're having a friendly conversation, ask them some questions, and really try and make your strong suits shine. That is a tongue twister, but that's the point I'm trying to get across.
Yeah. I those are great points. Go ahead, Dennis. Yeah.
I wanted to jump in there on top and just say, I really like Chantel's comment about be yourself. That's so important. And then, building on Grace's comment as well, interviewing the company, that's so important, right? If I'm talking to somebody and I'm looking for somebody who's going to be a long-term fit, I want somebody who is not going to be, I want that fit to be genuine. I'm looking for that hire to be a marriage. I want to know that they view me as a good fit as well. And so if an interviewee asks the company some questions about work environment and the like, that tells me that they've got some confidence, that they've got some options, that they're not desperate, because somebody who's getting a job with us that's desperate is, once they're not desperate, then they're going to start looking for what they really want, right? So make it look, like you're looking for the company you're sitting with is the company you really want to work for.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that it's a great fit for you. The people that are like the biggest difference I've noticed is when you're hiring people that are for senior positions, those people are coming in and they're looking for a fit for them. And when I'm interviewing people, and Grace, your comment was so good there, when I'm interviewing people that are having a conversation and are looking out for their own best interest at the same time, and if those two best interests mesh, then we've got a great scenario. That's when we've got to win. If those two interests don't mesh, then it's really not a great scenario for the applicant either, because they're going into a situation where they're not going to be comfortable in that work environment. And hey, we all got to do what we have to do when in desperate times. But the best scenario, and it really does make, at least for me, a significant difference when that person is coming in and they are looking for something that is right for them. That comes through in a big way.
Yeah, those are all really, really great points. I love the point on stalking. So many times I'll have people apply and they have no idea what Olympia is. That's for Olympia Financial, where I work, and the Star format. When you're asking questions and to have a tangible experience and response, that person's dealt with it. So often I'll say, tell me about a time where you've dealt with a difficult customer, and that to be able to sit back and say, oh, here's my example, take the time, everyone who's here, to sit back and think of those examples that you've done, write them down, hash them out, have them at your fingertips when you go into that interview. Because if you say, oh yeah, I used to deal with that all the time, and they say, okay, well, tell me an example, instead of panicking and not necessarily being able to come up with something, it's good to really think about those kinds of examples. Even times where you've dealt with a difficult coworker, a difficult manager, those are questions that get asked in every interview. And if you don't have a response for that, it just shows too that you necessarily didn't come prepared. So I love that point. And then just being yourself. Nobody wants to be working with someone. Obviously, certain industries call for certain personalities, but to be yourself, it's not, I always think of an interview as a first date. Nobody likes them. They're awkward. So if you can make it, you yourself also make the interviewer feel comfortable, they'll feel that warmth coming from you. And everybody wants someone on their team who's warm. Nobody wants someone who's cold. So be yourself. Yeah. Oh, great answers.
The worst outcome from a job interview, unless you desperately need a job, the worst outcome is not getting that job.
Yeah.
The worst outcome is getting that job and it's a horror show for you for the next 6 months and strips away your confidence and your soul. That's the worst outcome. So you want to make sure you do that, right?
For sure. Well, one of my last questions here for you all before we move into the audience portion of our panel here today is, for you, what would you suggest when it comes to, well, first of all, I'll start with, do you provide training to new hires? If so, what does that kind of look like? And then, we'll start with that. What do you do for training? What does that look like in your different industries, and how is that supported?
All right, I guess I'll jump in first. We need to provide training to everybody. What we do is atypical, right? So I'm, with the right candidate, I'll provide a high level of training. If I'm hiring a salesman, I'd like to, ideally not be training them on the basic process of sales and prospecting or those types of things. You hope they've got those base skills coming in.
Mhm.
But with regards to robotics and stuff, I mean, we've trained hundreds of teachers that knew nothing about robotics on how to teach robotics. Every employee that's come through the door, we trained them on how to use robotics, which is for most people very, very intimidating. But and this is an important comment for everybody as well. Technology is going to make an impact in your industry. It doesn't matter what your industry is. Do a Google search and figure out how robotics and AI will impact your industry
Mhm.
and the specific job functions that you want to use in those or do in those industries. And that's going to help you understand, what the future looks like, so you can be knowledgeable and prepared. But I would say, well, okay, here's a quick stat, and this is a little bit off topic, so I apologize. But at the high school level, the number of kids that are interested in learning robotics is 3% of boys, 0.3% of girls. So 3 girls out of 1,000. The way we teach robotics, we get 25 to 45%. We've got some schools that get 75% of boys and girls, right? But the way we're doing everything, even for people that are in the robotics education industry, what we do is different. So we provide a high level of training. What people are walking through the door with is not what they're going to look like in 6 months' time.
Yeah.
I apologize. That was really long.
That was great.
That's what happens when I go first. Need time to edit down.
You want to go?
Me?
Go for it.
Okay. Speaking off of what Dennis said, when you're getting hired for a certain position, yes, those skills that you bring your employer should not have to train you on those basic skills that you're bringing to the table. However, the things that you're going to be trained on is what's going to elevate you and why you want to be part of the team, because it's going to give you more experience and education. So specifically with Nutrimeals, we have as much training as we can. Really, it's just super, super unique and tailored towards what our day-to-day business looks like, what our operations is, what we are looking for from a looking forward perspective and into the future. But just based off of looking at the growth from our employees, what they came to us with, those skills, they're absolutely elevated, and that happens through the kind of training process that we have. It's not by any means like strict protocol. You go through this, you have to watch this video tutorial on this, and you have to watch, go through these specific milestones to be fully trained. But it's just you'll get your training with the experience of being hands-on. And I think that the hands-on experience is in some cases more beneficial than the traditional education approach. But
yeah,
Chantal, your turn.
No, that's great. Pretty similar to yourself. Every department, has their own training program. Obviously, the nature of every role is so different. I like to think of training as more so facilitated through an onboarding program, where it's more of a holistic approach to say, now that you've joined this organization and this team, this family, building out an onboarding program that more or less not so much trains you on the job specific requirements, you're bringing that to the table, but it more so trains you on, on the company core, like values, and the organizational culture itself. Because that's regardless of where you are in any capacity, there's going to be a huge level of involvement that's going to kind of pertain to everyone in the company. So I really like to kind of focus and tailor onboarding programs to really stem from the core mission, vision, values, and ensure that everything we do kind of does circle back to that. Because what is the point of having something like that if you're really not going to kind of practice what you preach and lead by examples? And so for those passionate champions that you want to bring on, that's something that really needs to be kind of well digested right off the get-go. But you can't really expect someone to kind of have that. There's definitely that desire to, but it's really up to like a fundamental onboarding program to kind of train you to kind of understand now, what does this actually look like here, and how do we handle those day-to-days. And so that's kind of a partnership with all the other hiring managers and leadership teams. So
For sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think folks get scared to transition industries because
Yeah.
they're not sure how their skills apply. And I think that especially now we're in a very unique time where employers are actually having a hard time finding talent. It's very unique. You know, we're at 7.8, I think, believe unemployment here in Alberta, and yet employers can't find people. So we're very much in a unique time. If you're looking to transition, put yourself out there and like, well, as we've discussed, create that resume and cover letter that can tailor your experience. If you're in reception and you're hiring to a data analyst position, but you spent day after day after day on helping out your president with his Excel sheets, make sure you find a way to talk about that. So yeah, lots of different ways to do that. And yeah, don't be scared. Try it out. You'll be supported. They're wanting to hire you for a reason. So okay, well, I think here we're coming up on 1 o'clock. So Robbie will transition things here. And we will have you help us facilitate our audience here and get some questions answered.
Yeah, sure. First off, for Chantel, Grace, and Dennis, I want to appreciate you guys coming on to our program and, you know, giving a lot of your information and your perspectives on things. And the first question I could see in here is from Hannah Castro. What do you think is the new way to approach or contact HR departments after the pandemic when many companies decide to adopt mixed home office schedules?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say first and foremost, so there's a few techniques I would approach here. So I would really go to the website, see if they have a careers webpage. So more often in time, the career webpage is going to have a different email address that'll be linked to either recruitment or whatever the domain name is. So that's another way in which you can get contact information. When I was seeking for employment, one method in which I would get in touch with those people is see if there's a job posting on LinkedIn and see if there's someone who has enabled the feature where they are actually the poster themselves. So you can contact them or find their profile. Or alternatively, if you do find the company has a LinkedIn profile, if you click on the People's tab, it'll give you a little bit of a dashboard to say sales, these individuals, HR, these individuals. So it kind of will link their job titles to the organization itself. And these are all really great approaches to kind of maybe finding who's behind that screen or who's kind of running the show there. And I highly recommend at all times, if you're applying for a job, to find that individual on LinkedIn and fire them off an email, introduce yourself, and don't ever hesitate to do something like that. Because that's really going to kind of resonate to say, wow, like not only did they apply to the appropriate job boards we've asked before a deadline if appropriate, but they went above and beyond and, you know, reached out to myself directly. That's going to really speak a lot of high volume about how much of a self-starter you are, your confidence levels, and what steps you're really willing to take to kind of get your foot in the door there. So those are all some pointers I would put out there for the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really appreciate your perspective on that. It's definitely really good to not only get your foot in the door with the application, but follow up to make sure they know that you're still interested. Grace, Dennis, do you have anything else to add?
I think Chantel just hit the nail on the head with that one. That was a really good response.
All right, we'll move on to the next question. And I'm not sure if this is pointed towards Dennis, but we'll see. What's the biggest challenge choosing the right fit for your company when there is an obvious shortage of IT candidates?
Well, we're not, you know, part of the answer for that is the truth is I don't have a great answer for that because we haven't been looking for people while there's been a shortage of IT candidates. But, you know, the biggest thing that I'm going to say that would be probably different from what we're going to hear from anybody else is, again, robotics and AI technology is making such a big difference. It doesn't matter what industry you want to go in. The more technological knowledge you have, the better it's going to be. You know, I've done sessions, you know, introduction to AI and robotics sessions for people that have lost their jobs and are trying to upskill. Mm-hmm. And then after 2 days of taking a quick course, they're talking to people and everybody thinks they're experts because the threshold is so low, right? So that's, you know, that doesn't specifically speak to IT, You know, a lot of companies, if they're looking for people that are in IT, you know, I mean, the shortage is everywhere.
Yeah.
Which is again why I said that I think that we're in an explosive industry, right? That the people with the tech skills are in high demand. So, you know, our goal is to try and train people to, you know, to have those tech skills.
Yeah.
So
And
specifically,
even to pop in, even though I'm not a panelist, even from our company perspective, we hire a lot of IT positions as well. We consider ourselves a fintech company, so financial technology. So we are, in fact, if you are looking to apply to a role today, we do have some developer positions open because there is a shortage. So what we've been doing is we had traditionally put out postings for senior or your intermediate developers. And now we're just finding we're bringing on our juniors, and, you know, not necessarily, of course, junior in regards to age, but in regards to that skill level. So more now than ever, if you decide that you want to transition and you go take a 2-year course at SAIT, you can pretty much walk into a job at 60K annually right now. And I don't think that has been something that has existed in the past as readily as it does right now. So that's how a lot of companies are finding that way to address the shortage, is the training piece, is bringing in folks who have some of that book knowledge and then applying it to their company.
All right. Well, thank you both, Catherine, for your input, and Maxims for their question. The next one I have is from Jeremy, and it's: how big of a difference does related volunteer or volunteer experience make a difference in your decision to hire a particular candidate over another in your industry? Who would like to take the question?
I'll jump on that. I think that volunteer experience is for us is really valuable, and that might seem like a bit of a counterintuitive thing coming from a tech company, but a huge portion for myself of why I got into this was because I recognized the huge impending skill gap between the skills people were going to need and the skills that our schools were giving them. So that's why I got into it. So even though I'm CEO of a robotics company, a large portion of my drive was to help give this education to children that weren't getting it and that were going to need it. And so if I can bring somebody in that has got a good heart and cares about those things, for us, that's every bit as valuable as anything else. And that might be different than a lot of people, but we're dealing with educators that are historically underpaid, overworked, and do it because they care about their customers or about their kids. And so if we've got somebody that's got that same heart, that's a real direct match. So we're a little bit different probably than other companies, but if I see volunteer experience, that's really valuable for us.
Yeah, it's great to know that people will go out of their way to help other companies, even if it's not a monetary value that they're getting back. Chantel, Grace, do either of you have anything to put towards this topic for volunteer experience?
I would say, really gauge how much involvement the organization you're applying for even has themselves, right? So in both of the departments, that I've led, one of our core values was community involvement and philanthropy and giving back. So year round, where we are hosting multiple events out of charity. We're actually participating, creating programs here in which our employees have that involvement, and that's really employer driven. So anyone that is doing that out of they're on their own time, that's going to be very valuable as well, because that's going to say this is going to be something that'll be engaging for both of us, right, when we get to that point. So I think it's very valuable straight across the board. I think it's valuable regardless of what direction you're kind of going on, but high value for myself.
All right, and Grace, anything to add?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what Chantel and Dennis have spoken about. I think that regardless of what the volunteer experience was, I think it's important to highlight. It kind of speaks to your character as well. And it's also a great speaking point that is a conversation piece that you can have between yourself and your hiring manager. I would kind of categorize that in like, if someone wants to list out their hobbies and activities that they like to do, it's just another added value piece that you're able to ask some questions about. And maybe then as the interviewee, you can ask your interviewer if they also have any volunteer experience, or like Chantel said, what does the corporation do so as like giving back to the community. So I think it's something that adds value. I don't think that it's ever something that will, I would hope that a hiring manager would be like, oh, you volunteer? Wow, no. Like that would just be shocking.
Yeah, I bet. Going on to the next question, because we only got about 2 left. This next question is specifically in regards to the IT industry. Do you interview a candidate with potential skills but did not meet the number of years required in the job posting? I'm assuming
I would.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're, regardless of if it's IT or any kind of job posting, if you can back up your experience, and if you've had some really quality years of experience, but it's underneath the threshold of what I'm looking for, that's okay. I'd rather you speak to that than be like, because for example, if someone is doing the same thing every year over year, and they're going, oh yeah, I have 10 years of experience, it's like, okay, you have 10 years of experience doing the same thing over and over and over again. But if you have high quality experience, I don't necessarily think that, and you can speak to it, I don't necessarily think that having being fearful that someone isn't going to look at your resume because you are underneath that threshold is something that you need to be concerned about.
All right. And Dennis, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think sometimes, when we're looking to hire somebody, we go, it's not throwing a dart at a board, but 5 years of experience, 10 years of experience. If you've got 3 years of experience, same thing with what Grace was saying there, that's valuable. But this kind of goes back to Catherine's comment and the earlier question about how do you hire people in IT when there's such a shortage? Specifically with regards to hiring IT people, if you're in that industry and there's a shortage right now, man, throw your resume out for everything, because you may be the only person that's applying, or one of the few people, right? Like, I could say I want 5 years. If I get no resumes, I'm like, anybody got 3? 3, how about 2? Do I have 1? Right? People are just going to work their way down the chain. And, the thing to know is that if you're, for lack of a better term, punching above your weight class with regards to, the listed skills and requirements, don't feel deflated and demoralized if you don't get a call back. Feel positive still. You're taking the steps you need to become successful. That's exactly the right thing you should do. You should feel great about taking those steps regardless of the outcome. But certainly when there's a shortage of workers in the IT field, I mean, Catherine's comment was perfect. They're looking for senior people, don't have them, promote the juniors, right? It's right. So,
yeah.
Sorry, Catherine, I should let you jump on that, but
yeah.
All right. Our last kind of question comes from Hannah, and it is towards Dennis. We have another question popped up just now afterwards, so I'll tackle that too. I've been looking for a job for months without any success yet for what I've decided to run my own business, digital information forensic services and e-discovery. So I would like to know if you have any advice, recommendations, or information I can research to get a guide to pull up my business.
If you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, that's going to be a real long answer, but there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things, like if you're trying to start your own business, SEO is hugely important. And I'll throw this out here. SEO is hugely important if you're looking for work on your LinkedIn page and stuff like that. Because if I'm looking for somebody that's an IT person, you should be making sure that you have every keyword related to IT in your LinkedIn profile, so that you come up in as many searches as possible. And people don't think about doing search engine optimization. It's the same thing with YouTube, LinkedIn, all of them, right? Like if you were to look through my LinkedIn page and I was to tell you what terms, I'm trying to get people to find me through, and then we were to highlight those, it would light up like a Christmas tree. Like it is so keyword stuff. So that's a big thing. But if you reach out on LinkedIn, I'm happy to have a chat with you. about the things that you can do to try to push your own business up. There's some really easy and obvious ones. And a lot of search engine optimization companies will not tell you the things that are actually going to work. And I can tell you that the information that I'll share with you will help you out in that regard.
Yeah, the big portion is a little bit too big for our 2-hour meeting here. So I do have one question for Catherine, but I'll quickly get through the rest of the questions here. So real quick, this could basically apply to any of our 3 lovely panelists. Have you ever tried using AI tools to help you hire, manage, teach, or help with retention?
I personally have not, so I will let the others answer this question because we just have been quite lucky so far with our retention. Sorry, okay, wait, hang on. Is this retention for employees that we're speaking about?
Yeah, I'm assuming the question is in regards to employees and also candidates for hire.
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
I'm gonna pass this one on to the other panelists.
Gotcha.
I'm going to defer this as well to Dennis because I'm not as well versed in AI as I would love to be. So the more
Yeah.
I learn from
Okay,
him,
and I've got a great answer for this, but it's not because of my specific knowledge of the AI in how it all works in this regards. But here's a really interesting story. I had a gentleman working for me last summer that is I think he's an engineering technologist working in the oil patch. And his resume is huge. This guy has worked all over North America, just awesome guy. Could not get hired for a long period of time. And I've worked with him before. He's also an excellent writer. So I brought him in to do marketing and business development with me. And so we were working along, and what he discovered halfway through his process, like he's looking at job listings and he's like, this is exactly what I do. I don't understand why these people aren't getting in touch with me. I have a decade of experience with the exact things that they're looking for.
Mhm.
And what he discovered was that his resume had the wrong terms. Like it would be like things like he had the word synergy, but they were looking for, collaboration or things like that. And I don't know what the tool is, but he discovered a tool out there that you could put your resume in that will read your resume the same way the AI does for these larger companies and tell you, how you've done. Are you hitting those words? And so I don't know what the tool is. I know there's a small cost for it, but he was blown away by the results. And I was very disappointed to lose my awesome biz dev guy as he went back to a higher paying position in the oil patch. So I know that they're out there, and I know that companies are using them, and so often the exact wording is important. Like one wrong word could trip you up. If I was applying for a job right now, I would definitely pay the $50 or $100 or $200 or whatever that number is to fire my resume through one of those and get it evaluated.
Yeah, it's all about dedicating time to making sure all of your terms, no matter how small or insignificant, match the position that you're applying for. It's one of the most
I would
important
recommend
things.
almost, sorry, not to cut you off, Robbie. I would just
Go ahead.
recommend thinking out loud here. What we refer to as one title will completely differ in a competitor's title as well. So if you are applying for, you see the posting, this is like, oh, I would love this job. Who is that competitor in that industry? And check out their job postings and see how they're wording things as well. Because titles just differ so much nowadays. It's just so hard to keep track of everything. But that might help kind of strengthen it from the AI perspective, and add a little bit of value there as well. So just as a pointer.
That's definitely a good point, Chantel. And I think with that, I have cleaned up all the questions. If anybody else has any more questions, but as of right now, I will pass it off to my lovely co-host, Catherine. Take it away.
All right. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? If you want to ask just verbally, even if you're more comfortable with that, does anybody have any questions for our panelists here, whether it's on the industry's hiring process, even, gosh, are you guys hiring right now? This is your time to toot your horns. Are we hiring anybody here today?
We're hiring. Yeah.
There you go.
Everything's up and active. I mean, I'm not saying this lightly, please. Like, I would love everyone to invite to connect and reach out if you have any questions, or if you want to have like a separate conversation or anything we talked about today. If you're not comfortable, I really want to extend that invitation to everyone on the call. So, but yes, we're hiring.
Great.
We're not actively hiring. I just mentioned that we were going to bring somebody in earlier in the call. I guess I would have been looking right before that, but what I know is that we are staffed lower than we would like to be. So, you know, we're small, so I can only bring on one person every month or so, you know, at the most. And but I know that our future is exceedingly bright. So we might not be hiring today, but there's a good chance we will be in the next 30 days.
For sure. Well, good. Well, no, definitely, you know, for everyone who's here, you know, go check out our panelists on LinkedIn, definitely follow their companies on LinkedIn, check out their website career pages. If you have any additional questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to the Goldmine Project email, or, you know, follow up that way. And we will be, you know, we would obviously love to thank you all for joining us again here today and volunteering your time in your community and helping bestow your amazing wisdom and knowledge upon all of us. There's definitely ways that I think even just chatting with amongst everybody, that there's some good tools, tips and tricks that we can definitely learn. So thank you to each and every one of you for joining us today. We will be having our industry panel part 4 coming up in November. So we're going to start promoting that event this week here. So we've got some pretty cool panelists, like we're going to be bringing in IKEA, for example. So if you're interested in that, keep your eye out on the Goldmine Project LinkedIn page and our website. That'll be November 17th. For today's event here, we will be uploading our YouTube video for that. So if you had to pop out early, or you feel like you'd like to share this with one of your colleagues, definitely pass it along. And of course, if you're not already a member, check out our website. I'll put that in the chat function right now here too. So feel free to pop into our website, add yourself as a member so you can get our newsletters and get the first word on when we have our next event coming out. So definitely looking forward to that. And without further ado, we'll wrap things up. Thanks so much, Robbie, for helping me co-host here today. Thanks for our professionals for joining us, and hope to chat and see you all very soon.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Thanks everyone.